Hey everybody, and welcome back to this edition of This Woman Can. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist for the black woman over 40 who wants to have a career that's far more aligned with their priorities and values. Now, the 2022 Women in the Workplace report is now live. It's one of my favourite reports to read, and one of the most unsurprising highlights is that women leaders are leaving their companies at far higher rates than before. And they're citing three key reasons. One, women leaders want to advance, but they face far stronger headwinds than men. Secondly, women leaders are overworked and under-recognised. And thirdly, women leaders want a better work culture. Now, a few other points stood out to me, especially as it pertains to the black female leader especially. Now, black women leaders are more ambitious, this report said, than other women at the same level, but they are more likely than other women leaders of other race and ethnicities to receive signals that'll be harder for them to advance. And as it pertains to a black woman's psychological safety, worried about being penalised for mistakes, feeling comfortable disagreeing with their co-workers or their boss, or feeling excluded, black women scored the highest. Now, that these challenges exist really are of no surprise to us, of those of us who faced it or worked in those environments, and they are definitely an attributing factor with the women I speak to, the women I work with. And I touched on quiet quitting before, and whilst that is still an active trend, given the results of the report, of this 2020 report, and the feedback I get from the clients I coach, the prevalent trend I see is quiet firing. Now, this is a term defined by TikTok influencer DeAndre Brown as a workplace that fails to reward an employee for their contributions to an organisation, forcing them to leave their job. I think some of us, and quite a few of us, have been there, and signs that you could probably see this is happening is if you've been at your job a while and you haven't received a pay increase, or the pay you receive is considerably below the average. And if you've been in that same role for 2 years and the such promotion rarely comes up, and when it does, you're not given feedback as to why you're not being helped in this way. Maybe you're not receiving constructive feedback on your assignments or tasks, and adding insult to injury, it's been edited by a manager directly, and you're not given the feedback, or your efforts aren't recognised, even if it doesn't need revising. And then there's a big one, which people sometimes overlook, that your boss refuses to meet with you repeatedly, or cancels meeting with you without reason or rescheduling. They're too busy, they haven't got time, they need to make time. Maybe you're excluded from meetings that are important to the work you do. You're not kept abreast of what's happening. Sometimes your boss may complain about your gossip to other employees, or you're in a situation you've been singled out to answer tough questions, or when you raise your ideas at meetings, they're disregarded. And although there's some realms of your contract, your working conditions, are part of the contract, maybe they get changed, so this makes it difficult for you to do your job or to do what you were doing before. And it could be as simple as you're not given stretch projects, even when you ask for it. But other people who are at your level, or maybe not as good as you, even if you think so yourself, are given the tasks. And all these things are, and there's probably more you can add to it, but give an indication of maybe someone's trying to make life uncomfortable for you at work. So what do you do? What do you do if you find yourself in that situation? Now, I'm going to say start with yourself. Don't shoot me down. But consider whether it's possible that you are underperforming and delivering less or a lower quality output than you're being paid for. Just a little bit of introspection, just sense check yourself. Then I want you to check your mental emotional state. Get a second opinion from someone who knows you well. Because when we're in stressful situations, burnout, anxiety and depression can be sneaky little buggers, and they can creep up on you without you even noticing. So tell that person you're speaking to what's happening and ask them what they think about the situation you're in. I want you to advocate for yourself as another option. Maybe come together with other people who have the same needs as you do, or are looking for a different change to the workplace. You know, maybe it's power in numbers. Speak to the powers that be, you know, air your concerns, give your feedback, but then give them some time to make their actual changes. Do your homework. Familiarise yourself with the protocols for promotions. You know, how often do you read the employee handbook? Because you can actually reveal a lot of useful information about the process, about what happens, you know, the feedback, what's supposed to happen. And that can help you feel far more comfortable when it's time for you to have that all-important conversation with your boss. And lastly, I want you to know what you bring to the table. Keep records of your accomplishments and the value that they have added to your work and what you've done. Know the pay scales for similar roles in your field or your industry to support your case. Now, maybe you've never considered quiet firing as an issue, you know, or maybe with the conditions you regarded it as part of being the cause of being a black woman at work. Because after all, you know, over the years we have been conditioned, I'll put this in air quotes, to accept that microaggressions and mistreatment are just one of those hurdles that we have to navigate in our careers. But being mistreated or ignored at work can put a dampener on your mental health, and it will require you to make tough decisions about remaining persistent, whether you're going to remain persistent or if you're going to leave that role. Now, ultimately, if you've done all this and the quiet firing continued, then I would really question your why for being in that role. You know, you really have to think about that. Do you really want to be working in a toxic organisation? Do you really want to be working for a business that just doesn't respect you or who you are, that doesn't embody the values that you probably have yourself? It may not feel like it, but you do have options. Languishing and being miserable at work is not one. It's not a thing to do, because let's face it, life is way too short to do that. And you're worth far more than that. And as I said, we're living a lot longer. We have a lot more years to be at work. So shouldn't it be doing something you enjoy? Now, I'd like to know if you have had any instances where you feel you've been quiet fired, what you did about it, you know, any tips, hints for anybody else who feels themselves that we can share with the listeners. And if you feel that you're in a situation where, look, that I recognise some of those signals and maybe it's time for me to move on, but I need a little support doing that, don't forget you can talk to me, Janice Sutherland. You can email me at info@janicesutherland.com, or visit my website janicesutherland.com to find out more information how I can support you when it comes to your career development and career change. And always remember, if I can, you can, this woman can. Take care until next time.